All right, welcome, friends. My name is Brian Benson, founder of InspireLink.com, and today we have Andrea Waltz with us. Andrea is passionate about helping people overcome the fear of the word no and feelings of failure and rejection that go along with it. Her best-selling book is Go for No, and it has 300,000 copies sold and has been on the top 20 of Amazon's sales books for the last 5 years. And I've read the book, and it's amazing, and it changed my life. So I reached out to Andrea on Twitter many times and finally got her here. So hooray! How are you?
I'm doing great, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thanks for being here. We're super excited.
The story that happened to Richard, which is kind of the launching point, is he was working for a menswear store. His sales were horrible. He was pretty sure they were going to fire him, and he was a good salesperson, but he hated to hear the word no, like most of us.
Yeah.
So anyway, the district manager comes in, a guy by the name of Harold, and Richard ends up working that day as well. A customer walks in the store that first thing that morning. Rich ends up taking care of this guy, and the guy basically says he wants to buy an entire wardrobe of clothing. So Richard is thinking, oh, this is great. I'm going to sell this guy all this stuff, and Harold's going to think I'm a great salesperson, and I'll be able to keep my job for hopefully a couple more months. So he ends up selling this guy a suit and sport coat and has an $1,100 sale and rings him up and sends the guy on his way, and he's there and waiting for Harold to congratulate him, and Harold doesn't say anything. And finally they're standing together, and Harold finally throws Richard a bone. He says, that was a nice sale, kid. And he's like, yeah, $1,100, that was so great. And he goes, yeah. He goes, I want to ask you a question, though. And Richard says, sure, what is it? He goes, well, out of curiosity, what did that customer say no to during that whole fabulous sale you had, right?
Yeah.
And Rich thinks about it, and he's like, wow, the guy bought a suit and a sport coat and slacks and all this stuff. And he's like, the customer didn't say no to anything. And then Harold, the district manager, says, well, then how did you know he was done? And Richard realized in that moment that he had a fear of hearing the word no. He would show the guy something, the guy would say yes, got some yeses, hit his mental spending limit, which was just over $1,000. Was like, anybody who spent over that was like, okay, they were done.
Yeah,
right? Get them out. And in that moment, he had this epiphany, and Harold said, you're a good salesman, but your fear of the word no is going to kill you. If you could just get over that, I think you could become one of the great ones. Well, so he goes home that night, he comes in the next day, and Rich decides that he's going to hear no more often. He's just going to hear no a lot more. And his sales, it took him a whole year, but he became an award-winning salesperson, got into management, got into leadership, got into training, and just would tell people about this little story. So when he shared it with me, I had an epiphany, kind of like you did with reading the book. I was like, wow, that is so simple and yet so brilliant. I need to hear no more.
Right.
I need to hear no more. And simultaneously, Brian, I had read a book a couple years before this, which just, for some reason, it was like one of the only personal development books I'd ever purchased. But when I was in college, it was called The Aladdin Factor. And it was I think the subtitle is something like, how to get anything you want. How to ask for and get anything you want. And it was a Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen book. And fundamentally, it's not go for no, and yet it is go for no. It's all about asking. Mm-hmm. It's all about how to ask and when to ask and who to ask and what to ask. But it fundamentally is all about asking. And the funny thing is, and maybe this, for me, maybe it was a female thing, but it never occurred to me. Like, oh, you want something and you just ask for it?
Right.
I think I had the mindset of you just sit back and you hope that you get, not that you go out and you ask. So despite the fact that I called George Lucas, which I guess in those days I had, as kids, I think we have that tenacity, right?
Right.
But, so when Richard shared this Go for No story with me, we included it, that little part in a little book that we wrote for the retail industry. That's where we launched our business. And that book was really successful in that industry. We probably sold like 25,000 copies. We became speakers and trainers in that industry. And then we decided to write Go for No. And Go for No was, okay, let's take this little idea of not stopping when you hear no. And what we used to say, our tagline, which would kind of freak people out, was go out and intentionally increase your failure rate. Intentionally increase the number of times that you hear the word no on a daily basis in your business, whatever it is, and you will be more successful. We applied it to our training, speaking and training business, and we've seen people in every business and industry apply this successfully, whether it's fundraising or anything else. It's just about not fearing that word no.
Can you share a story on how you've leveraged your networks to grow Go for No?
Yeah, one of the things that we've done, and this is not a something that is a super breakthrough idea. I think a lot of people are doing this successfully out there. But back in 2009, Richard and I decided that we wanted to make a little documentary movie. And since I didn't get into the movies the way I wanted,
Yeah, right.
I was very excited about this. So we took a couple flip cameras in those days. Flip was the big camera on the market, right? We got in the car. We ended up driving 12,000 miles around the country. It took us about 44 days, I think. And we interviewed 58 people for our documentary. We ended up creating we had hours and hours of footage. We ended up getting it down to like 98 minutes of interviews and also Go for No type lessons. And so in doing that project, in going out and finding other people's expertise, and asking them questions. Fundamentally, we asked them questions that were Go for No style questions.
Yeah.
You know, how do you handle rejection? What do you think about failure? Why are people afraid of no? How have you leveraged the word no in your life and in your business? We asked all these people these questions, and then we kind of took the answers that they were all great, but we really culled them down. So we'd hear, somebody answer the failure question for 15 seconds and someone else. Well, in building this and doing this project, we created a great product. It's a super fun product, but also we met 58 amazing people and got to talk to them. Mm-hmm. And that really is, I think, that idea of taking your expertise or your passion, kind of like what you're doing, Brian, and going out and saying, okay, I'm not going to be the guru on the mountain. I'm going to go collect all of this stuff from all these people. And in doing so, you get to meet all these people. So now
awesome.
if you ever need something from me, you call me and you say, hey, I interviewed you a year ago. Well, now I know who you are because you did the footwork, you did the research, and you made whatever you end up doing with these, right, long term, but you made great connections. So that movie was a big one. And we also did something similar. A couple years later, we wrote a book called $1 Million a Year. And we did an interview just over the phone, a conference call style interview. If you bought the book, you got access to these interviews. And we interviewed 52 top people in the direct sales and network marketing industry. Same premise. So now we have all these connections for that particular network. Mm-hmm. And it's very much a win-win. We get to learn from them. They get their expertise and knowledge out and get to help people. So I think projects like that, interesting creative projects are how we've been able to kind of build our network over the years and have people kind of know what Go for No is. I think they know Go for No more than they actually know who we are.
What have you seen as some of your biggest challenges as a female entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, they always talk about the quote boys club, right? The boys club, the guys' camaraderie together, and when you bring in a female, it ruins that mix and it ruins that boys club. And so what's I think most frustrating is that it isn't just that it's all of a sudden an influx of women and you've got instead of 6 men at the table, you've got 3 women and 3 men. Really, it's still 5 men and 1 woman. Mm-hmm. So there's that feeling of still kind of, I think, isolation. And what I've seen, though, the good thing is over the last few years is women having a girls' club mentality and really coming together and saying, hey, we have to at least become confident and empowered to be that 6th person, to be that one female mm-hmm. among the 6 men, so that eventually it can be 2 and 4, and eventually we can get it to 3 and 3. I don't think any of us women are looking to dominate and take over the world, but it would be nice to be equal. And I sometimes I think I see things online that even with entrepreneurs, plays on words, like instead of entrepreneur, it's womanpreneur or something like that. And I'm a little torn up on that, honestly, Brian. I don't feel like I need some kind of special label per se, as a female, to say, oh, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. I happen to be a woman, and
Yeah.
I'm very cool with that. And I don't really like some of the labels, I think, to somehow differentiate. But I think the lack of inclusion gets wearing. And I went on a website recently, and it was a online software that you can buy, and they were like, here are all these amazing internet entrepreneurs who are using this software. And it was all the little pictures, and there were about 30 people on there, and there was one female. And it
Wow.
just seems, when I think of all of the female entrepreneurs who are in the internet space, Marie Forleo and Ash Ambridge and different like amazing women. Now, maybe they don't use the service,
Yeah.
but I'm sure with the hundreds and thousands of people using this service, they could have picked a few more women. So that's a little frustrating, and I see that even in sales conferences, whether they're online conferences or whatever, it's still, 13 men and one woman. It's like almost the token, okay, we need to get a woman in here. So from that standpoint, I think it really is just, I think the challenge is to be more inclusive, and that is on women to constantly get involved and kind of break up those boys clubs and say, hey, we're here, and there's a lot of us, and let's include everyone. But I don't know if doing the labels is the way to do that. I think it's about putting positive, persistent pressure on men sometimes to say, hey, just and really making people aware. I wonder if the person who put together that website even I don't think they intentionally left women out. I
Right.
think it's just an awareness of, you know what, there's a ton of great internet marketing experts out there, and you guys have one female. Come on.
You did mention, you speak publicly and confidence and things. So, what's really helped you? What pumps you up? What gets you super excited? And how do you build that inner confidence?
Well, I will say this. When I was, I guess, 13, I did a presentation on the dangers of smoking in, I guess it was 7th or 8th grade. And after that presentation, which I will just say did not go well, I vowed that no matter what happened in my life, that I would do everything in my power not to speak in front of people, no matter what. I mean, if you had told me of any profession, you could have listed astronaut, janitor, trainer at SeaWorld, any profession you could have listed. Professional speaker, public speaker would not have been on the list, because I would have said there's absolutely no way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hated it. I was terrified. I don't like being judged. Which is always kind of in front of my mind, and it certainly was at that age. When I got into college, I took a speaking course, and because I decided to force myself, I thought I'm going to have to end up giving a presentation somewhere along the line, forced myself to take it. It was fine. I survived, but I still did not like it, did not have any confidence. And it was really only, Brian, when we got into Go for No, and Richard was doing the speaking and he was doing the training for so many years. And then finally we said, okay, we really should speak together. He said, I hate traveling. I don't want to do this speaking thing anymore. And that what he actually decided was he didn't like to do it alone.
Right.
He didn't want to do it alone. And we said, well, we could make a great speaking team, because a lot of our audiences actually are female. In some cases, 80% are female. So we said, let's put together a presentation, and we'll go back and forth. And I was terrified. I still was terrified, but my confidence level changed in that I so believe and love the message. I could talk about Go for No and then the philosophies for hours on end, because I believe in it. And I guess I believe in it because the feedback that I've gotten of people writing us or telling us this changed my life. I was super shy. I wasn't confident. I didn't know what direction I was going in. I had a guy write me from Thailand who was in school and didn't know what to do afterwards, and now has followed his dreams and is living his passion because he read Go for No and just decided that he wasn't gonna, live and not pursue what he wanted. It was just amazing thing. So it gives me the confidence to go out there and not care anymore about what people are thinking about me, but just care about sharing the message. It sounds so cliche. I've heard that before,
Yeah.
but but it is true. Is if you just focus on what you're trying to communicate to people, and not about the art of speaking, and not saying and not saying which is my super crutch. If you could just focus on what you're trying to get across and the message, it makes things so much better.
Do you go through a lot of preparation before you're getting on stage now, or are you feeling you're just like, I love this so much that I'm getting up there?
I do prepare, but we have a presentation that we've crafted over the years, which I'm so familiar with. But I actually kind of enjoy okay, I'm going to talk 5 minutes on this topic, but I don't know exactly what I'm going to say.
Right.
Like, I'm going to talk about how to get off the yes-no emotional roller coaster, but I don't know exactly how I'm going to get into that, and I don't know how I'm going to get out of that. The thing that Richard taught me, though, and he's been speaking for years and years, is he said, if you can just get your first line down, everything else can flow from that. Know your way in. So if you start with just that line, that is that line, and then you don't have to craft every single line, but you have to know how you're getting in. And then he says, and then you have to know how you're getting out. You have to know that ending, like you're a gymnast and you want to stick your ending, you have to stick your ending.
Yeah.
And for me, and you've probably heard speakers too, some speakers will end 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
They think, they're done. And then all of a sudden it's something else.
I know.
You want to stick your ending.
Yeah. No, I think that's, most people say they remember the kind of the beginning and the end, so finish strong and everything. But I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that, once you get on stage, as soon as you get that first line out or whatever it is, you're immediately like in the zone afterward. I think there's always going to be like that nerves or like butterflies right before, but I think once you like hit your stride, you're like, okay, I'm good now. I said it, man.
Exactly. I mean, I had the worst possible scenario happen. I was in front of 7,000 people and I forgot where I was. Now, I think for most people, I know, right? I think for most people, they would think that is the worst nightmare, to be up on stage and forget where you are. And the problem was, and this is where I always tell Richard, you cannot tell me anything because I will not remember it. Don't tell me to say any line because I am telling you I will not remember it. So we were talking about this whole idea of Go for No, and the idea that we say, get off the yes-no emotional roller coaster. And if you think of a roller coaster as up and down, right? It's you get yeses and you're all excited, and then you get nos and you're all down and depressed. And so what happens is you're up and down and your emotions are never stable. So the whole idea is to stabilize out your emotions. And his analogy, which is a brilliant one, but just not one that's in my head, he said it's like the straightest distance between 2 points. I messed it up. Even today I messed it up. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, right? Straight line. But what we do is when you go up and down and up and down and up and down, then it takes you so much longer to get to your goals. That was the point. And so I'm on stage and he plants the seed in my head, and I'm not blaming him, but he plants the seed. He says, yeah, you could mention the shortest distance between 2 points thing. And I'm like, I'm not gonna see, there's some things that are just implanted in your mind. There's some concepts, some phrases, right? And as a speaker, I rely on what I really know in my heart and I believe, and so I can't be fed things. So he feeds me, he reminds me of this. So I'm on stage and I say something like, I'm on a track, I'm talking about this topic, and I say, and the shortest distance between, and then I'm at that moment, I'm not even sure if I've said it right. Just like I said it with you, I'm like lost. I'm not even sure. I don't even know in that moment, really, am I describing this correctly? So I stop for a second and then I say to everyone, I say, I just, I just lost my place. I just totally forgot what I was talking about. I turned and then I said, anyway, and I picked up on the point that I wanted to make in the first place.
Yeah.
And Brian, it was like fine. It was fine. In fact, I had some lady come up to me afterwards and she goes, "You handled that really well." The point is it's just to remember a couple things. The audience has no idea what you're going to say. If you screw up, but then you remain calm, the key is to not freak out. Everyone's on your side and to just pick something else up. So I was able to, because I know the topic well enough, I was able to just pick up and jump right into what something else that I wanted to share. It was all fine. And I also didn't want to just start rambling and pretend like I knew what I was doing, because I didn't. In that moment, I didn't want to finish the sentence because I wasn't sure if I'd said it right. You know what I'm saying? So even, I think when you think about in speaking, even your worst nightmares are survivable. I am proof of that.
How can we give ourselves permission to fail? Why is that? I mean, how am I able to say it's okay to get a no, or it's okay to do that? Because that's something that I think everybody fears, that a failure, or when they're starting a new business. If you're an entrepreneur, it's like it may not work out as well as I want it to, or my MVP may not be this, but it may be this, and how can I pivot? So how can I give myself permission to just chill out and say it's okay to fail?
Right. That's so tough. And when I do these Go for No, I've done some 30-day challenges, webinars, and 7-day challenges. And I tell people when I'm on there, I say, I am giving you permission to fail. I'm expecting you to fail. So I think it is harder to give ourselves permission. So that's why I'm hoping that even if you can't necessarily give yourself permission, maybe let someone else give you permission. I'm giving everyone who watches this for eternity permission.
There we go.
I want you to fail, right? So, but it is hard. And so my answer to the question seriously is you have to reparent yourself, as corny as that might sound. I think about how parents are with their children and so patient and so, oh, tie your shoe and try it again and learn how to ride a bike and all of these things. And the parents aren't screaming at the kids like, I cannot believe you haven't learned to tie your shoe. You're 5, for the love of God, come on. I mean, they don't do that.
No, right.
Right? Parents are so patient with their children, and they watch them fail over and over, and then finally the kid gets it right, and then now it's the next thing that they have to learn. And yet for us as adults, we have no patience, nothing but perfectionism, no kindness, really. No, like, hey, if you fail, it's okay. No, it's like, no, you can't fail, and you've got to be perfect, and don't be an idiot, and don't, all of these things. And I think, how do you treat someone else so kindly, like a child or even a friend? You wouldn't do that to a friend.
Right.
And yet yourself, you have these incredibly ridiculous expectations and really things that are unkind, because that kind of pressure, at least for me, almost ensures that something's going to go wrong. I don't need you to tell me don't fail. I need you to tell me, like, just go out and have fun, and whatever happens, just like when Richard and I speak, the thing we always say to each other before we go out is, have fun.
I love it.
If you're having fun, everyone else will have fun. It's not like, oh, go out and kick butt, or, rock the stage or whatever. That's ego. It's just, we want to have fun. If we're having fun, the audience will have fun. And so that kind of pressure is what you need to take off. So for permission to fail is just, it's, to me, I think it's being kind to yourself, giving yourself a gift of, hey, I don't have to be perfect. I just have to do the best I can. And, and then you see what's going to happen after that.